Most men today believe they are thinking clearly, but they are merely reacting to a world designed to keep them distracted. They wake up already defeated, their minds immediately hijacked by notifications that scream for attention before their feet even touch the floor. They scroll through other people's lives before they have lived a single moment of their own day. They check messages from people who do not care about them, absorb news designed to agitate them, and consume content engineered by algorithms that know their weaknesses better than they know themselves. And then they wonder why, by the time they sit down to breakfast, they already feel exhausted, anxious, and vaguely angry about things they cannot even name. This is not living. This is not thinking. This is the systematic colonization of human consciousness, and it is happening to millions of people every single day without them even realizing it. They move through their lives in a state of perpetual reaction, pulled in 1,000 directions by forces they did not choose and cannot control, and somewhere deep inside them, beneath all the noise and busyness and obligation, a voice keeps asking the same question over and over. Is this all there is? Is this what I worked so hard for? Is this what my life has become? I, Dale Carnegie, have spent my entire adult life studying human behavior, observing what makes people succeed and what makes them fail, what brings them peace and what destroys them from the inside out. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that what we are witnessing in modern society is not simply stress or pressure or the natural challenges of life. It is something far more dangerous. It is the systematic dismantling of human consciousness itself. We have created a world that profits from your distraction, that monetizes your anxiety, that feeds on your insecurity, and that keeps you perpetually dissatisfied so that you keep searching for answers in all the wrong places. Every advertisement you see is designed to make you feel inadequate. Every social media post is curated to make you feel like you are falling behind. Every news cycle is engineered to keep you in a state of fear and outrage. Every productivity system promises you that if you just optimize a little more, hustle a little harder, achieve a little faster, then you will finally feel the peace and satisfaction that somehow keeps eluding you. But that peace never comes, does it? Because the system is not designed to give you peace. It is designed to keep you chasing, consuming, comparing, competing until you are so exhausted that you have no energy left to ask the most important question of all. Who am I really living for? The price we pay for this mental occupation is catastrophic in ways most people cannot see because they are living inside it. They experience it as the constant low-grade anxiety that has become so normal they do not even notice it anymore. They feel it as the exhaustion that sleep does not cure, the relationships that feel more like obligations than connections, the achievements that bring no satisfaction, the success that feels hollow the moment it is attained. They live in a state of permanent dissatisfaction, always reaching for the next thing that will finally make them feel whole, never realizing that the problem is not that they have not achieved enough, but that they have lost touch with themselves entirely. I have watched successful men with impressive careers and beautiful families and bank accounts that should bring security, sit across from me with dead eyes and tell me they feel nothing. They have everything they thought they wanted and they feel empty. They climbed the ladder only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. They spent decades building a life that looks perfect from the outside but feels like a prison from the inside. And now they are trapped, not by their circumstances, but by their inability to even imagine what freedom would look like, because their minds have been so thoroughly occupied by other people's definitions of success that they have forgotten their own. But here is what I have learned through decades of observation and personal struggle. Your mind can be reclaimed. The prison you are living in is not made of steel and concrete. It is made of habits, beliefs, patterns, and stories that you repeat unconsciously every single day. And what is unconscious can be made conscious. What is habitual can be changed. What is learned can be unlearned. You are not stuck. You are simply living according to a program that was installed in you without your permission. And you have been running that program for so long that you have forgotten it is a program at all. You think it is just who you are, but it is not who you are. It is who you became when you stopped paying attention. What I am offering you today is not another self-help technique or motivational strategy. I am offering you something far more fundamental and far more radical. 10 principles for detoxifying your mind and breaking free from everything that keeps you trapped in a life you never consciously chose. These are not quick fixes. These are restructuring principles that will require you to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself, about the world you live in, and about the ways you have been complicit in your own imprisonment. But I promise you this, if you have the courage to apply them, if you are willing to do the difficult work of becoming conscious, you will reclaim sovereignty over the only territory that truly matters, which is the landscape of your own mind, your own heart, your own life. The first principle of mental detoxification is understanding that your attention is not a renewable resource. It is your life itself converted into consciousness. Every single moment you give your attention to something, you are quite literally giving away your life. This is not a metaphor. This is not an exaggeration. When you spend an hour scrolling mindlessly through social media, you have not wasted an hour of time. You have traded an hour of your existence, an hour you will never get back, for a stream of content specifically designed by teams of engineers whose entire job is to keep you scrolling. When you spend your morning absorbing news designed to make you angry and afraid, you have spent the first and most precious hours of your day marinating your consciousness in toxicity. When you lie in bed at night replaying conversations that happened years ago or worrying about scenarios that will never occur, you are spending the currency of your life on mental simulations that serve absolutely no purpose except to drain you of peace and clarity. The average person today gives away their attention thousands of times per day without even realizing they are doing it. They live in a constant state of scattered consciousness, their mental energy fragmented across dozens of inputs, never fully present anywhere, never fully alive to anything. They are at work thinking about home. They are at home thinking about work. They are with their children thinking about their phones. They are with their phones thinking about everything except what is actually happening right now in this moment. This is not living. This is existing in a state of perpetual elsewhere, and it is destroying people from the inside out. I have seen men with impressive titles and significant responsibilities who have not had a single original thought in years because their minds are completely occupied by other people's ideas, other people's opinions, other people's emergencies. They are not thinking. They are processing inputs. They have become organic computers, running programs written by their environment, and they have forgotten that they were ever anything more than that. The path to mental freedom begins with a radical act of reclamation. You must declare war on everything that demands your attention without enriching your life. This means you must become ruthlessly selective about what you allow into your consciousness. Every notification that buzzes in your pocket, every news story that promises to tell you what to think, every piece of content that offers to fill 5 minutes of your time, every conversation that leaves you feeling drained rather than nourished, you must ask yourself one simple question. Does this serve my growth, my peace, my purpose, or is this simply noise disguised as information? And here is what you will discover if you are honest. Most of what fills your mind on any given day is noise. It is not information. It is not education. It is not connection. It is noise, and noise is not neutral. Noise is toxic. It accumulates like pollution in your consciousness, clouding your clarity, draining your energy, preventing you from accessing the wisdom that already lives inside you. You need to understand something that modern society desperately wants you to forget. You do not need more information. You are drowning in information. What you need is less. You need space. You need silence. You need the capacity to hear your own thoughts without them being immediately drowned out by the thoughts of everyone else. The most revolutionary act you can commit in the modern world is to reclaim your attention, to guard it fiercely, to treat it as the precious and finite resource that it is, and to invest it only in what genuinely matters to you. Not what you have been told should matter, not what other people think should matter. What actually matters to you when you strip away all the noise and listen to the quiet voice of your own soul. The second principle is recognizing that most of your suffering comes from living in mental timelines that do not exist. Human beings have developed the extraordinary but profoundly dangerous ability to live simultaneously in 3 dimensions of time: the past, the present, and the future. The problem is that only one of these dimensions is real. Only one of these timelines is actually happening. The past is a memory, and every time you recall it, you revise it slightly, coloring it with your current emotional state, reinterpreting it through the lens of who you are today rather than who you were then. The past you remember is not the past that happened. It is a story you tell yourself about what happened, and that story changes every time you tell it. The future is even less real. The future is a projection, a fantasy, a story you tell yourself about what might happen based on patterns you think you see and fears you cannot shake. The future you worry about is almost never the future that actually arrives, and on the rare occasions when something you feared actually comes to pass, you discover that you wasted all that time worrying about it when the worry did nothing to prevent it and only robbed you of peace in the present. The present moment is the only place where life actually happens. It is the only dimension of time where you have any power, any agency, any ability to affect reality. Yet it is the one place most people refuse to be. They spend their days haunted by regrets about yesterday and paralyzed by anxiety about tomorrow. And in doing so, they miss the only day they actually have, which is today, this moment, this breath, this choice. I watch people torture themselves with past mistakes that cannot be changed. They replay old conversations in their minds, reimagining what they should have said, rehearsing better comebacks to insults that happened years ago, as if somehow this mental repetition will change what occurred. It will not. The past is fixed. You cannot edit it. You cannot undo it. The only thing you can do with the past is learn from it and then release it. But most people do neither. They learn nothing because they are too busy defending their old choices, and they release nothing because they are addicted to the familiar pain of regret. And then there is the future, that vast landscape of imagined catastrophe that most people inhabit more fully than they inhabit the present. They construct elaborate scenarios of failure and humiliation and disaster, and then they emotionally respond to these fictional events as if they were actually happening. They feel the fear, the shame, the despair of situations that exist only in their imagination. And this is not thinking. This is not planning or preparing. This is self-inflicted psychological torture. Your mind was not designed to carry the entire weight of your history and the entire burden of your future simultaneously. It breaks under that load, it fractures. It becomes a place of constant anxiety and exhaustion because you are trying to live in 3 timelines at once when you barely have the energy to live in one. Mental detoxification requires what I call temporal honesty, which is the practice of acknowledging what is actually happening right now, in this moment, stripped of the stories you attach to it, stripped of the meaning you impose on it, stripped of the past that colors it and the future that haunts it. Right now, reading these words, most of you are physically safe. Your basic needs are met. You are not in immediate danger. The crisis you are worried about exists only in your projection of what might happen tomorrow or next week or next year. The shame you feel exists only in your interpretation of something that happened yesterday or last month or 10 years ago. The present moment when you actually examine it, without the filter of past or future, is usually quite manageable. It is your mind's refusal to stay in the present that creates the majority of your suffering. This does not mean you should never plan for the future or never reflect on the past. It means you should do those things consciously and purposefully and then return to the present, because the present is where your power lives. The present is where you can make different choices. The present is where life is actually happening. Everything else is memory or imagination, and while both have their place, neither should. Become the primary location of your consciousness. You are meant to live here now, not there then. The third principle involves understanding the tyranny of other people's opinions and expectations, and I need you to truly hear this, because it is one of the most insidious forms of mental imprisonment. You are living under a dictatorship you barely recognize, which is the dictatorship of imagined judgment. From the moment you wake until the moment you fall asleep, you are making decisions based not on what you truly want, but on what you think other people will think about what you want. You choose your career based not on what calls to your soul, but on what sounds impressive when you tell people at parties. You purchase things not because you need them or even want them, but because they signal a certain status to people whose opinions you have inexplicably decided matter more than your own peace of mind. You hide parts of yourself that might invite criticism. You perform a version of yourself that requires constant maintenance and exhausts you to sustain. You say yes to things you desperately want to say no to because you are afraid of disappointing people who would not even notice your suffering. You exhaust yourself trying to maintain an image that is not even real, that does not even reflect who you actually are, that exists only to please people who are doing exactly the same thing, who are too busy worrying about what you think of them to actually think much about you at all. The cruel irony of living for other people's approval is that the people whose approval you seek are themselves so consumed with seeking approval that they barely register your existence, except as it relates to their own insecurity. I have discovered through painful experience that the opinions of others have power over you only to the extent that you grant them that power. When someone criticizes you, insults you, judges you, dismisses you, their words are initially just vibrations in the air or pixels on a screen. They are sounds and symbols with no inherent power. They become weapons only when you pick them up and stab yourself with them. You are the one who takes their assessment and replays it in your mind 1,000 times. You are the one who gives it weight and meaning and permanence. You are the one who internalizes it, who allows it to reshape your self-concept, who grants it more authority over your sense of self than your own direct experience of who you are. This is the ultimate form of self-betrayal, allowing other people's confusion about who you are to become more real to you than your own understanding of yourself. And it happens constantly, unconsciously, automatically, because you have been trained since childhood to look outside yourself for validation, for permission, for proof that you are acceptable. Mental detoxification demands that you develop what I call sovereign self-perception, which is the ability to define yourself from the inside out rather than from the outside in. This does not mean becoming arrogant or defensive or dismissive of all feedback. It does not mean surrounding yourself with yes men who never challenge you. It means becoming the ultimate authority on your own experience, your own values, your own direction. It means caring more about who you are actually becoming than about who people think you are. It means making decisions based on what aligns with your deepest values rather than what will generate the most likes or avoid the most criticism. It means understanding that everyone is going to have an opinion about you regardless of what you do, so you might as well live according to your own truth rather than exhausting yourself trying to satisfy 1,000 conflicting opinions that will change tomorrow anyway. The people who matter will respect you more for being authentic, even if they disagree with your choices. The people who do not respect authenticity do not matter. It is that simple, though it takes years for most people to truly understand this. The fourth principle addresses the addiction to stimulation that keeps you from accessing your own depth. And this is one of the most overlooked forms of mental toxicity in the modern world. You have been conditioned to fear silence. You have been trained to avoid stillness. You have been programmed to reach for your phone the moment you experience even 5 seconds of boredom or discomfort. You fill every gap in your day with podcasts, music, videos, scrolling, anything at all to avoid being alone with your thoughts. You eat with your eyes on a screen. You walk with headphones in your ears. You sit in waiting rooms staring at your device rather than simply sitting. You have lost the ability to simply be, and you do not even realize what you have lost because you have never known anything different. But here is what this constant stimulation is doing to you, and I need you to understand this deeply. It is making you shallow. Your consciousness is like a body of water. When it is constantly agitated by external inputs, when it is perpetually choppy from the winds of content and noise and distraction, it remains on the surface, it never settles, it never clears, and depth requires stillness. Insight requires silence. Wisdom requires solitude. The greatest ideas you will ever have, the deepest understanding of yourself and your life, the clarity about what truly matters to you and what direction you should move in, none of this will come while you are consuming content. It will come in the spaces between consumption, in the moments when you dare to turn off all the inputs and sit with yourself and let your own thoughts settle like sediment in water until the water becomes clear. I am not suggesting that you become a hermit or abandon all entertainment and information. I am suggesting that you have lost the ability to be with yourself, and until you recover that ability, you will remain a stranger to your own soul. You need to cultivate what previous generations understood instinctively, but we have completely forgotten, which is the practice of simply being, sitting without agenda or purpose, walking without headphones or destination, eating without screens or reading material, existing without performing or consuming or producing or documenting. Just being, just existing, just experiencing the raw, unmediated reality of being alive in this moment. This terrifies most people because when the noise stops, when the distraction ceases, they discover how loud their inner world has become. All the anxieties they have been avoiding with constant stimulation come rushing in. All the questions they have been suppressing with endless busyness demand answers. All the grief they have been postponing, all the anger they have been swallowing, all the fear they have been denying, it all surfaces the moment they stop running from it. And their first instinct is to reach for the phone again, to turn the music back on, to fill the silence with anything except their own thoughts. But this is not a problem. This is the beginning of healing. You cannot heal what you will not feel. You cannot resolve what you will not face. You cannot integrate what you keep pushing away. Mental detoxification requires that you develop a practice of deliberate stillness, a daily appointment with silence, where you reclaim your capacity to exist without constant external stimulation. Start with 5 minutes if that is all you can manage. Sit without your phone. Do not meditate. Do not try to empty your mind. Do not attempt to achieve some special state. Just sit. Let your thoughts come. Let your feelings arise. Do not judge them. Do not push them away. Do not try to fix them. Just observe. Just be present to your own inner experience. This practice will be uncomfortable at first. You will want to quit. You will think it is a waste of time. You will feel restless and anxious and bored. Good. That discomfort is information. It is showing you how dependent you have become on external stimulation, how little capacity you have left to simply be with yourself. Keep sitting. The discomfort will pass. And underneath it you will begin to find something you forgot was there yourself. Your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own wisdom, your own clarity. It has been there all along, buried under layers of noise, waiting for you to be still enough to hear it. The fifth principle concerns the stories you tell yourself about who you are and what is possible for you. And this might be the most important principle of all, because your life is not shaped by your circumstances, but by the narrative you construct about your circumstances. Two people can experience the exact same event and emerge with completely different futures because they tell themselves completely different stories about what that event means. You have been telling yourself certain stories for so long that you have forgotten they are stories. You think they are facts. You think they are truth. I am not good with money. I am not creative. I am too old to change careers. I am not the kind of person who takes risks. I am not smart enough to learn that. I am not attractive enough to deserve love. These are not truths about you. These are sentences you have been repeating until they became self-fulfilling prophecies. Your identity is not discovered lying in wait somewhere inside you. Your identity is constructed through the stories you repeatedly tell about yourself, and those stories can be reconstructed. Every single day, you are voting for the person you will become through the narratives you reinforce. If you consistently narrate your life as a series of disappointments and failures, as proof that the world is against you and nothing ever works out, your mind will filter all new experiences through that lens, finding evidence to confirm your story while ignoring evidence that contradicts it. If you narrate your life as a journey of growth and learning, as a series of lessons and opportunities disguised as obstacles, your mind will attune itself to possibilities and resources that were invisible to you before. This is not delusional positive thinking. This is not pretending that bad things did not happen or that your current situation is not difficult. This is understanding how consciousness actually works. Your mind operates on a simple but extraordinarily powerful principle. Whatever you repeatedly tell it becomes its reality. Not because your mind is gullible, but because your mind's job is to help you survive and navigate the world, and it does that. By creating patterns of perception based on what you signal is important. If you signal through your repeated narratives that you are helpless, that you are a victim, that you are damaged beyond repair, your mind will organize reality to confirm that belief. It will filter out opportunities because why would it show you opportunities when you have already decided you are helpless? It will sabotage your efforts because why would it help you succeed when you have already decided success is not for people like you? Conversely, if you begin to narrate your life differently, if you begin to tell a story about resilience and capability and growth, your mind will begin to reorganize reality accordingly. You are not lying to yourself about your current situation. You are refusing to let your current situation become your permanent identity. You are distinguishing between what is true right now and what must be true forever. And that distinction changes everything. Mental detoxification requires that you become conscious of the stories you have been living by, the narratives that run automatically in the background of your consciousness, shaping your choices without your awareness. Some of these stories came from your parents who were repeating stories they learned from their parents. Some came from traumatic experiences that you have allowed to define you rather than refine you. Some came from a culture that benefits from you believing you are powerless. You need to conduct an inventory. Write down the stories you tell about yourself. I am this kind of person. I am not that kind of person. I cannot do this. I will never be able to do that. Look at these stories objectively and ask yourself, is this actually true, or have I simply believed it for so long that it has become true? And then, with great courage, begin to rewrite the stories that are keeping you small. This is not about manufacturing false confidence. This is about refusing to be imprisoned by narratives that no longer serve your evolution. The sixth principle is understanding that most of what you call your personality is simply unexamined habit, and this is perhaps the most liberating and most threatening realization you can have. You think you know yourself. You say things like, I am just an anxious person, or I have always been this way, or this is just who I am. But what you are calling your personality is actually a collection of patterns you have been repeating for so long that they feel like identity. You are not naturally pessimistic. You have practiced pessimism until it became automatic. You are not inherently anxious. You have rehearsed anxious thought patterns until they became your default state. You are not just an angry person, or a sad person, or a scattered person, or an undisciplined person. You are a person who has developed habits of anger, sadness, distraction, and self-sabotage. And habits can be changed. But here is what makes this so difficult. Habits feel like truth. They feel like you. They feel like your nature, your essence, something unchangeable and fundamental. The voice of habit says, this is just who I am. And you believe it because you cannot remember a time before the habit was there. But I have worked with people who believed their depression was their fundamental nature, only to discover it was a learned response they had been practicing since childhood, a pattern of thinking they inherited from a depressed parent and never questioned. I have seen people who thought they lacked discipline, who were actually extraordinarily disciplined, in their self-sabotage, incredibly consistent in their patterns of avoidance. The discipline was there. It was simply directed toward destruction rather than creation. The patterns you repeat become the person you are. This is not mysticism or philosophy. This is neuroscience. Your brain physically rewires itself based on what you practice. Every thought you think, every behavior you repeat, you are strengthening certain neural pathways and weakening others. You are literally sculpting your brain with your daily choices. If you repeat patterns of avoidance, you become an avoider, not because that is your nature, but because you have built the neurological infrastructure of avoidance. If you repeat patterns of courage, you become courageous through the same mechanism. This means you are not fixed, you are not stuck with the person you currently are, you are endlessly malleable. But malleability requires consciousness and courage. You need to start seeing your patterns as patterns rather than as identity. When you notice yourself thinking an anxious thought, do not say, I am anxious. Say, I am having an anxious thought. When you notice yourself engaging in self-sabotage, do not say, I am self-destructive. Say, I am practicing a pattern of self-sabotage. This linguistic shift might seem minor, but it is profound. It creates distance between who you are and what you are doing. It reminds you that these are behaviors, not essence. And behaviors can change. Mental detoxification involves identifying the habits of thought and behavior that create your suffering and systematically, deliberately, consciously replacing them with habits that create your freedom. This is not a one-time event. This is not something you do once and you are fixed. This is the daily work of becoming someone new. Every moment is an opportunity to practice a different response, to interrupt an old pattern, to choose differently than you chose yesterday. When the familiar anxiety arises, you can practice a new response instead of the habitual one. When the old story starts playing in your mind, you can consciously choose a different narrative. When the impulse to avoid or numb or distract appears, you can pause and make a different choice. Each time you do this, you weaken the old pattern and strengthen the new one. Each time you choose consciously instead of reacting habitually, you become slightly more free. This is how transformation actually happens, not in dramatic moments of revelation, but in thousands of small choices to do something different than you have always done. The seventh principle addresses the difference between real problems and mental dramatization, and this is crucial because most people are suffering far more from their thoughts about their problems than from the problems themselves. Your mind has a tendency, a deeply ingrained evolutionary tendency, to take a situation and make it a catastrophe, to take a challenge and transform it into a crisis, to take a difficulty and spin it into a disaster. This served your ancestors well when threats were immediate and physical, when that rustling in the bushes might actually be a predator. But in the modern world, where most threats are psychological rather than physical, this tendency has become a source of enormous, unnecessary suffering. Most of what you worry about exists only in your imagination. I am not minimizing real difficulties. I am not suggesting that you do not have genuine challenges to face. I am pointing to the fact that you often create 10 layers of suffering on top of one layer of actual pain. Something happens, that is the event, the objective reality of what occurred. Then your mind takes that event and spins an elaborate story about what it means, about what will happen next, about what it says about you, about what everyone will think, about how you will never recover, about how this proves everything you feared about yourself. That story is not the event. That is your dramatization of the event, and very often the dramatization causes far more suffering than the event itself. I have watched people destroy themselves, not because of what happened to them, but because of the meanings they assign to what happened and the catastrophic narratives they constructed around it. They lose a job and decide they are failures, that they will never find work again, that they are worthless, that everyone who believed in them was wrong. They face rejection and conclude they are fundamentally unlovable, that they will always be alone, that there is something wrong with them that cannot be fixed. They make a mistake and determine they are irredeemable, that they should give up, that they are not cut out for this, whatever this is. None of these conclusions are forced by the events themselves. They are choices about interpretation. They are stories, and stories can be changed. Mental detoxification requires that you develop the ability to separate facts from interpretation, to distinguish between what actually happened and what you are making it mean. When something difficult occurs, you need to ask yourself, what is the objective fact here, stripped of all my interpretation? I lost my job is a fact. I am a failure is an interpretation. She rejected me is a fact. I am unlovable is an interpretation. I made a mistake is a fact. I am incompetent is an interpretation. When you strip away the layers of drama and catastrophe and meaning, most situations become much more manageable. You start to see that you have been living in a horror movie of your own creation, responding not to reality, but to your catastrophic fantasies about reality, and you can step out of that movie anytime you choose to see clearly. This does not make you cold or unfeeling or dismissive of genuine difficulty. It makes you sane. It makes you effective. It allows you to respond appropriately to actual problems rather than being paralyzed by imagined catastrophes. When you stop dramatizing, you free up enormous amounts of mental and emotional energy that you can redirect toward actually solving problems instead of spiraling in anxiety about them. This is not about toxic positivity or pretending everything is fine. This is about developing the capacity to see clearly, to think clearly, to respond proportionally to what is actually happening, rather than to your worst-case scenario simulations of what might happen. The eighth principle is recognizing that resentment is drinking poison and expecting someone else to die. And this is one of the most toxic and most common forms of mental imprisonment. You are carrying anger from years ago, maybe decades ago, anger toward people who hurt you, betrayed you, disappointed you, abandoned you, abused you. And you believe you are holding this anger against them, that you are maintaining your resentment as a form of justice, as proof that what they did was wrong, as insurance that you will never forget and never be hurt that way again. But here is what is actually happening. They have moved on with their lives. They are not thinking about you. They are not suffering from your resentment. Some of them do not even remember what they did. Some of them are dead, and you are the one who wakes up every single day with this toxic weight in your chest, this corrosive bitterness in your heart, this rage that colors everything you see and contaminates every relationship you try to build. Resentment is the refusal to let go of the past, because letting go feels like admitting that the person who hurt you got away with it, that what they did was acceptable, that justice was not served. So you hold on to your anger as if it were evidence in a trial that will never happen, as if your suffering somehow balances the scales, but it does not. The scales remain unbalanced, and your resentment is not hurting them. It is destroying you from the inside. It is poisoning your present relationships because you cannot fully trust anyone when you are still wounded by someone from your past. It is darkening your perception of the world because you see threats and betrayals everywhere. It is trapping you in a past that cannot be changed while your present slips away unlived. I am not telling you that what happened to you was acceptable. I am not asking you to pretend you were not hurt or that the harm was not real. I'm not suggesting that the people who hurt you deserve your forgiveness or that they should escape consequences. I am telling you that continuing to inflict that hurt on yourself every day by refusing to release it is not justice, and it is not protection. It is self-destruction. Forgiveness is not about them. Forgiveness is about you. It is about choosing your own freedom over your attachment to pain. It is about choosing your present and future over your past. The people you resent do not have to apologize for you to forgive them. They do not have to change. They do not have to acknowledge what they did. They do not even have to be alive. Forgiveness is a unilateral decision you make to stop letting old wounds dictate your present experience. It is a choice to reclaim the mental and emotional energy you have been investing in anger and redirect it toward building the life you actually want to live. Mental detoxification demands that you conduct an honest inventory of all the grudges, resentments, and unprocessed anger you are carrying, all the people you are still punishing in your mind, all the situations you are still relitigating, and begin the difficult but profoundly liberating work of letting them go. Not because those who hurt you deserve it, but because you do. Because you deserve to live free of this weight. Because you deserve a present that is not contaminated by the past. Because you deserve peace more than you deserve revenge. The ninth principle involves understanding that your environment is not neutral. It is actively programming you, shaping your thoughts and emotions and behaviors in ways you do not consciously recognize. The people you spend time with, the content you consume, the physical spaces you inhabit, the conversations you participate in, the information you absorb, all of this is either supporting your growth or reinforcing your limitations. And most people vastly underestimate the degree to which their environment determines their trajectory. They think willpower and determination are enough, not realizing that willpower is a finite resource that gets depleted rapidly when you are trying to swim against the current of your environment. You cannot win a sustained battle against your environment. You will always eventually conform to it. The only solution is to change your environment. I have seen countless people try to transform their lives while staying in the same toxic job with the same cynical colleagues who mock anyone who tries to improve. They stay in the same dysfunctional relationships with the same people who benefit from keeping them small and insecure. They remain in the same cluttered, chaotic home that drains their energy every time they walk through the door. They maintain the same social circles that reinforce the same limiting beliefs and destructive patterns. And then they fail to change, and they conclude that transformation is impossible for them, that they just do not have what it takes, that they are fundamentally broken. It never occurs to them that maybe transformation was not impossible, but maybe it was impossible in that environment, with those inputs, surrounded by those influences. If you surround yourself with cynicism, you will become cynical. If you immerse yourself in complaint and victimhood, you will become a complainer and a victim. If you spend your evenings consuming content that leaves you anxious, agitated, angry, and empty, you will be anxious, agitated, angry, and empty. This is not weakness, this is not failure of character. This is how human consciousness works. You absorb the emotional and intellectual climate of your surroundings. You become like the people you spend time with. You internalize the messages you repeatedly receive. Mental detoxification requires that you become fiercely, almost ruthlessly protective of your environment, that you treat your environment as the greenhouse it is, recognizing that what you plant and cultivate there will determine what grows in your consciousness. This might mean changing jobs even when it is financially scary. It might mean ending friendships even when it feels lonely. It might mean moving to a different city even when it disrupts your routine. It will definitely mean disappointing people who benefit from you staying exactly as you are, who feel threatened by your growth because it highlights their stagnation. Your environment should be a greenhouse for your evolution, not a cemetery for your dreams. And if your current environment is keeping you trapped, you owe it to yourself to change it, regardless of how difficult or uncomfortable that change might be. You have one life. You do not owe anyone your stagnation. The 10th and final principle is perhaps the most important of all. You must reclaim your relationship with purpose, with meaning, with the sense that your life is about something larger than mere survival and consumption. The deepest source of mental toxicity in the modern world is not stress or trauma, though those are real. The deepest source is meaninglessness. It is waking up every day and going through motions that connect to nothing larger than paying bills and filling time. It is working at a job that serves no purpose you can articulate. It is achieving success in games you never wanted to play. It is having everything you thought you wanted, and discovering it means nothing. Human beings are purpose-driven creatures. We are wired by evolution or God, or whatever you believe in, to seek meaning, to contribute, to feel that our existence matters, that we are here for something, that our lives add something to the world. When that need goes unmet, we deteriorate psychologically, regardless of how comfortable our circumstances might be. I have met people with every material advantage imaginable, people who should, by all conventional measures, be happy, who are dying inside because their lives serve no purpose they can name. They have become very good at tasks that mean nothing to them. They have climbed ladders that lead nowhere they actually want to go. And now they are trapped in lives that look impressive from the outside but feel hollow from the inside. Purpose is not something you discover in a single moment of revelation on a mountaintop. Purpose is something you construct through the daily choice to align your actions with your deepest values. It emerges when you ask yourself difficult questions and have the courage to live by the answers. What do I actually care about when I strip away everything I have been told I should care about? What would I do with my time if I knew I only had 2 years left to live? What do I want to be remembered for? What breaks my heart about the world, and what am I doing about it? What unique contribution can I make that only I can make? These questions are uncomfortable because most people have been living in such deep avoidance of them that they do not know their own answers anymore. But until you answer them, you will remain adrift, moved by whatever current is strongest, shaped by whatever force is loudest, living a life that belongs to everyone except you. Mental detoxification is ultimately about this single thing: reclaiming your mind so that you can reclaim your life. Everything I have shared with you comes down to one fundamental choice: the choice to become conscious. Conscious of how you spend your attention, conscious of the timelines you inhabit, conscious of whose opinions you grant power, conscious of your need for stillness, conscious of the stories you believe, conscious of the habits you practice, conscious of how you dramatize difficulties, conscious of the resentments you carry, conscious of the environment that shapes you, conscious of the purpose you serve or fail to serve. Consciousness is not comfortable. It is much easier to sleepwalk through life on autopilot, reacting rather than choosing, consuming rather than creating, complaining rather than changing, numbing rather than feeling, avoiding rather than confronting. But that path, the path of unconsciousness, leads to a very specific destination: regret. The regret of reaching the end of your life and realizing you never actually lived your own life. You lived the life that was expected of you, prescribed for you, imposed upon you by circumstance and culture and other people's agendas. You never asked the hard questions. You never took the difficult stands. You never became who you could have been because you were too busy being who everyone else needed you to be. You played it safe when you should have been brave. You stayed silent when you should have spoken. You followed when you should have led. You conformed when you should have rebelled. And now, at the end, you are left with the most painful question of all. What might my life have been if I had chosen consciousness over comfort? I am telling you today that you have another option. It is harder. It requires more courage. It will cost you the comfort of unconsciousness, the certainty of conformity, and the approval of people who prefer you asleep. But it leads somewhere infinitely more valuable. It leads to freedom. Real freedom. Not the freedom to do whatever you want without consequences, but the freedom to become who you actually are. The freedom that comes from a mind that belongs to you, a life that reflects your values, a presence that is fully awake. This is what mental detoxification offers. Not happiness in the conventional sense, not ease, not success as the world defines it, but something far more precious, the experience of being genuinely alive, of inhabiting your own life fully, of knowing that you showed up for your one chance at existence with courage and consciousness. Start small if you must, but start today. Choose one principle and apply it right now. Reclaim 1 hour of your attention from mindless consumption and invest it in something that actually matters to you. Sit in silence for 10 minutes and let your thoughts settle. Write down one story you have been telling yourself and ask with brutal honesty if it is actually true. Forgive one person, even if only in the privacy of your own heart, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Change one element of your environment that drains you. Ask yourself one honest question about what you actually want your life to be about, and do not accept a superficial answer. One conscious choice will lead to another. One moment of clarity will create space for more clarity. One brave decision will make the next brave decision slightly easier. The path to freedom is not a single dramatic transformation. It is 10,000 small decisions to choose awareness over autopilot, truth over comfort, growth over stagnation, courage over fear. You are more powerful than you know. Your mind is more malleable than you believe. Your life is more available to change than you have been allowing yourself to imagine. But none of that potential matters until you choose to claim it. The door to your prison is unlocked. It always has been. You have been free to leave at any moment. The question is not whether you can walk through that door. The question is whether you will. That choice begins now. That choice is yours alone. Make it consciously. Make it courageously. Make it today. Your life is waiting for you on the other side of that decision.